The twin suns of Varelles hung low in the sky, casting long, jagged shadows over the cracked expanse of the glass wastes. Dust devils spiraled lazily between the skeletal remains of war machines, and the air tasted of ozone and burnt metal. Cade Mercer stumbled forward, his boots crunching over silica shards that glittered like broken promises. He was alone, not by choice but by the brutal math of war. His squad had been overrun 3 hours ago during the retreat from Citadel Theta, and now he was just a stray dog limping through a graveyard of steel and bone. His left arm throbbed where a plasma bolt had grazed him, and his water canteen had run dry 2 sunrises ago. Still, he kept moving. Stopping meant death, and Cade wasn't ready to die. Not yet, not here, not without seeing Earth's oceans one last time. He didn't hear them coming. The Varelians moved like ghosts, their footfalls silent on the glassy terrain, their armor shimmering with the faint iridescence of adaptive camouflage. One moment the wasteland was empty. The next, 5 figures emerged from the heat haze like vengeful spirits, tall, lean, and unmistakably alien. They wore form-fitting combat suits the color of storm clouds, their faces sharp and elegant beneath half-helm visors. Their skin was a deep, royal purple, and their hair, a trait Cade had come to recognize from battlefield briefings, was stark white, flowing like frozen starlight down their backs. Varelian warrior women, elite caste, not the kind you surrendered to and lived. Cade's hand went to the knife at his belt. His rifle was long gone, lost during the ambush. He knew the odds, 5 to 1. Exhausted, wounded, dehydrated. It wasn't a fight, it was suicide with extra steps. Still, he wouldn't go down on his knees. He straightened his spine, squared his shoulders, and met their gaze with what little defiance he had left. The tallest of them stepped forward. Her eyes, luminous violet, slitted like a cat's, locked onto his. She didn't draw a weapon. Instead, she tilted her head, studying him as if he were a puzzle she hadn't expected to find in the middle of a killing field. The others fanned out, silent and watchful, hands resting on the hilts of their pulse blades. Cade swallowed hard. "If you're going to kill me," he rasped, voice cracking like the earth beneath his feet, "just get it over with." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached up and removed her half-helm, revealing high cheekbones, a smooth forehead marked with faint silver glyphs, and lips that twitched, not in cruelty, but something almost like amusement. "You smell like burnt wires and regret," she said, her voice low and melodious, with a faint echo that seemed to resonate in Cade's bones. "And you're bleeding on my sand." Cade blinked. "Your sand? This is the ancestral wastes," she said, stepping closer. "Only fools and the dead walk here without blessing." "Well," Cade said, managing a weak smirk, "I'm not dead yet, and I've never been accused of being wise." That earned him a small, genuine smile. Her white hair shifted in the hot breeze, catching the dying light of the suns. Up close, she was even more striking, regal, dangerous, and undeniably beautiful in a way that defied human standards but stirred something deep in his gut. Before he could say more, a distant howl split the air. Not animal, mechanical, reinforcements, human dropships, by the sound of it, sweeping low over the horizon. The Varelian warriors tensed, their hands tightening on their weapons. Their leader's expression hardened. "They'll shoot first, ask never," she muttered. Then, without warning, she grabbed Cade's uninjured arm and yanked him behind her. The other warriors shifted instantly, forming a protective half-circle around him, their blades now drawn and humming with blue energy. Cade's heart hammered. "What are you doing?" "Shut up," she snapped, her eyes fixed on the approaching ships. "And don't move." The dropships roared overhead, their underbellies studded with turrets. Spotlights flared, sweeping the ground. A voice crackled over a loudspeaker. "All hostile units, surrender or be eliminated," one of the Varelian warriors hissed in their native tongue. Their leader raised a hand, signaling calm. Then, as the ships circled for a strafing run, she did something that stunned Cade to his core. "Don't hurt him!" she shouted. her voice ringing across the wastes with impossible clarity. "He is my mate." Silence followed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Cade's jaw dropped. "You're what?" The dropships faltered mid-turn. One of them hovered, its spotlight pinning the group in blinding white light. Over the comms, a confused voice. "Say again? Mate?" The Varelian woman turned her head just enough to glare at Cade. "Unless you want to be turned into ash, I suggest you stop looking so surprised and start acting like my bonded." Cade's mind raced. This was insane. He'd never seen her before today. He didn't even know her name, but survival instincts kicked in. He straightened, trying to look whatever a human male mated to a Varelian warrior was supposed to look like. Confident, submissive, loving. He settled for determined. "I'm, hers," he called out, voice stronger than he felt. "We're bonded. Under Varelian Treaty Clause 7? Or something." The dropship's spotlight flickered. The comms crackled again. "Command, this is Delta 4. We've got a complicated situation on the ground. Requesting clarification." Their momentary hesitation was all the Varelian woman needed. With a sharp whistle, she signaled her squad. They moved as one. Fluid, silent, deadly, and vanished into a narrow fissure in the glass plane that Cade hadn't even noticed. He stumbled after them, half-dragged, half-carried, as the dropships debated overhead. Inside the fissure, the air was cooler, damp with mineral scent. Bioluminescent fungi clung to the walls, casting an eerie violet glow. The warriors didn't stop until they reached a hidden chamber, its entrance concealed by a shifting membrane of living crystal. Only then did their leader release Cade's arm. He sagged against the wall, breathing hard. "What the hell was that?" he demanded. She crossed her arms, her violet eyes glinting with something between irritation and reluctant admiration. "That," she said, "was me saving your life. Again. Again." Cade frowned. "We've never met." Her expression softened, just slightly. 3 days ago, Citadel Theta, you carried a wounded Varelian medic out of the burning infirmary while your own men were retreating. You didn't know she was enemy. You just saw someone hurt." Cade remembered. The chaos of the retreat, the smoke, the screams. He'd seen a figure in tattered robes, bleeding from a shrapnel wound, and without thinking, he'd slung her over his shoulder and dragged her to a collapsed bunker before vanishing into the smoke. He'd assumed she died anyway. "That was you?" he asked. "No," she said. "That was my sister, Lyra." Cade stared. "Your sister?" "Yes. And when she told me a human soldier, had risked his life for her without knowing her name, I wanted to see you for myself." She stepped closer, her voice dropping. "I watched you from the ridge during the ambush, saw you fight like a cornered wolf, saw you refuse to leave your wounded friend until he was dead in your arms. And then, you walked into the wastes alone." Cade looked away, shame prickling his neck. "Didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," she said softly. "You chose kindness, even in hell." He didn't know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. "You called me your mate." Her lips quirked. "It was the only thing that would make your people hesitate. Varelian mating bonds are sacred. Even your commanders know that. To harm a bonded mate is to invite war beyond reckoning. So, we're not really?" He trailed off, suddenly aware of how close she was standing. She studied him, her gaze lingering on the fresh cut on his cheek, the exhaustion in his eyes. "Not yet," she said finally. "But the law doesn't require truth. Only belief." Cade exhaled a shaky laugh. "You're insane. And you're still bleeding," she said, turning away. "Sit." She knelt beside a pack one of her warriors handed her and pulled out a medkit marked with the sigil of the Varelian Healing Conclave. Her fingers were deft as she cleaned his wound, her touch surprisingly gentle. Cade watched her, the focused curve of her brow, the way her white hair fell over one shoulder, the quiet strength in her movements. "What's your name?" he asked. "Vera," she said without looking up. "Daughter of House Nalthus. Blood of the Glass Wastes." "Cade Mercer," he offered. son of no one important, from a wet rock called Earth. That made her glance up, a flicker of something in her eyes. Curiosity? Earth, the blue world. I've seen Holos. Your oceans? They're real. Yeah, he said, smiling faintly. All that water. Feels like a dream now. She dabbed antiseptic on his wound, and he winced. Sorry, she murmured. Then, after a pause, would you take me there? To see it. Cade blinked. You're asking a human soldier if you can visit Earth. After calling him your mate to save his life? Vera met his gaze, and for the first time he saw vulnerability beneath the warrior's mask. My people don't bond lightly, she said quietly. When we choose, it's for life, for children, for building something that lasts beyond war. She looked down at her hands. No Varelian male has claimed me. They say I'm too fierce, too independent. That I'd break a mate, not keep one. A bitter laugh escaped her. And humans, you've never shown interest in us. You call us monsters. I don't, Cade said without thinking. She looked up, startled. I saw your sister, he continued. She wasn't a monster. She was scared, hurt, human, in everything that matters. He paused. And you just saved my life with a lie that could get you executed if your people find out. I don't care what they think, Vera said fiercely. Then softer, but I care what you think. The air between them thickened. Outside, the sound of dropships faded into the distance. The warriors around them pretended not to listen, but Cade caught the subtle glances, the knowing smiles. He reached out, slowly, and touched her hand. Then tell me the truth, Vera. Why really did you shield me? She didn't pull away. Instead, she turned her hand and laced her fingers with his. Cool, strong, alien, and strangely right. Because when I saw you standing there, alone in the ruins, with nothing left but your honor, I saw someone worth protecting, worth keeping. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Worth loving. Cade's breath caught. He'd known love once, back on Earth before the war. It had ended in tears and silence. But this felt different. Not desperate, not fleeting. It felt like sunrise after a long, dark night. I don't know your customs, he said. I don't know your gods or your laws. But if you're offering, I won't say no. Vera's eyes shimmered. Not with tears, but with something brighter. Hope. Then it's done, she said. By Varelian right, spoken before witnesses, the bond is real. One of her warriors cleared her throat. Technically, she said dryly, you have to exchange blood under twin suns, and there's the mating dance. And the... Shut it, Terran, Vera snapped, though she was smiling. Cade laughed, the sound rough but real. Guess I've got a lot to learn. You do, Vera said, standing and pulling him up with her. Starting with how to survive the next hour. Because outside, new sounds rose. The deep thrum of heavy engines. Not human, not Varelian. The Krell. Merciless, ravenous. The true monsters of the sector. They'd been drawn by the battle like scavengers to blood. And now they were coming. Vera's expression hardened again. The tender moment replaced by the warrior's mask. But she didn't let go of Cade's hand. You stay behind me, she said. No, Cade said, picking up a fallen pulse blade from one of her warriors. I stay beside you. She looked at him, really looked, and nodded. Then we fight as mates. As one, they turned to face the entrance. The warriors formed up, blades humming. Cade's grip tightened on the alien weapon, his heart pounding not with fear, but with purpose. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was someone's mate, someone's future. And in the dying light of Vareli's, as the Krell horde descended upon the glass wastes, Cade Mercer stood shoulder to shoulder with Vera of House Nalthus, not as human and alien, but as one. Ready to bleed, to fight, to build something beautiful from the ashes of war. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. The ground trembled as the first Krell skiff crested the dune, its jagged silhouette cutting a wound across the blood-orange sky. It wasn't sleek like Varelian or human craft. more like a rusted claw, cobbled together from scrap and spite. More followed, 3, then 5, their engines howling like beasts starved for violence. Krell didn't believe in stealth. They believed in terror, and they delivered it with brutal efficiency. Vera's warriors shifted into formation, blades raised, eyes locked ahead. Cade could feel the tension coiling in their frames. Not fear, but readiness. These women had fought Krell before. They knew the cost. "Stay close," Vera murmured, her voice barely audible over the rising din. "They'll try to separate us. Don't let them." Cade tightened his grip on the pulse blade. It hummed warmly in his hand, responding to his grip like it recognized him. Or maybe that was just wishful thinking. "I've tangled with Krell before," he said. "Back at Sigma Outpost. They don't take prisoners." "They don't take anything," Vera corrected grimly. "They consume. Flesh, metal, memory. They devour it all." As if on cue, the lead skiff opened fire. Acid rounds spat from its mounted cannons, hissing as they struck the glassy ground, melting craters into the earth. The Varelians scattered, moving with preternatural grace. Cade dove behind a half-buried chassis, his breath coming fast. He wasn't built for this kind of agility, not after days without sleep or food. But he was stubborn, and that counted for something. Vera rolled into cover beside him, her white hair streaked with dust. "You fight like a drunk sand crab," she said. But there was no malice in it, only urgency. "And you talk too much during a firefight?" Cade shot back, peering around the wreck. One of the Krell had dismounted, a hulking brute with chitinous armor and too many eyes. It bellowed, hefting a serrated axe twice its size. Before Cade could react, Vera was gone, leaping over the wreckage with a battle cry that echoed like thunder in the thin air. Her blade flashed, slicing through the Krell's wrist. Black ichor sprayed, sizzling where it hit the ground. The creature roared, swinging its remaining arm blindly. Vera ducked, spun, and drove her blade into its thorax. Collapsed with a gurgle. She turned back to Cade, eyes blazing. "You coming? Or are you waiting for an invitation?" He scrambled up, heart hammering. Around them, the battle raged. Terran, Vera's sharp-tongued second, had pinned 2 Krell to a rock face with twin daggers through their necks. Another warrior, slender and silent, moved like smoke, severing limbs with surgical precision. But the Krell kept coming. More skiffs, more soldiers. They seemed endless. Cade spotted movement to his left, a Krell crawling toward Vera's back while she fought another. Without thinking, he lunged, driving his borrowed blade into the creature's spine. It shrieked, thrashing, but Cade held on, yanking the blade sideways. The thing went still. Vera turned, saw what he'd done, and for a heartbeat, her mask slipped. Pride, relief, something warmer. Then the world exploded. A Krell mortar round slammed into the fissure wall above them, sending shards of crystal and rock raining down. Cade threw himself over Vera, shielding her body with his own as debris clattered around them. When the dust settled, their faces were inches apart, breath mingling, eyes wide. "You're heavier than you look," she said, voice rough. "And you're softer than you pretend," he replied. She didn't deny it. Instead, she pressed a hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "Too fast," she murmured. "You'll burn out." "Not if we end this," he said, pushing to his feet and offering her his hand. She took it, and together they surged forward. What followed wasn't strategy, it was survival stripped bare. They fought back to back, human and Varelian, blade and bone. Cade learned quickly. Krell armor was thickest at the shoulders, weakest at the joints. Their eyes were sensitive to light. Vera's blade emitted a strobing pulse that disoriented them. And they hated cold. When Cade remembered the coolant canister strapped to his belt, salvaged from a wrecked drop pod, he hurled it at a cluster of them. The flash freeze cracked their exoskeletons like eggshells. By the time the last Krell fell, the suns were nearly gone, painting the sky in bruised purples and deep reds. The battlefield was quiet except for the crackle of burning metal and the labored breathing of survivors. Cade slumped against a rock, his arms trembling. Vera knelt beside him, pressing a canteen to his lips. The water was faintly sweet, laced with something that numbed the pain in his arm. "What's in this?" he asked, voice hoarse. "Mediroot extract," she said. "And a drop of my blood." He paused, the canteen halfway from his mouth. "Your blood." She met his gaze. "To seal the bond. Symbolically, but also practically. Varelian blood carries regenerative peptides. It'll help you heal." Cade stared at her. "You're serious about this?" "I don't lie about mating," she said simply. "Not even to save a life." Taryn approached, limping slightly, her armor scorched. "We lost Jessa," she said, voice tight. "Took 3 Krell with her. But she's gone." Vera closed her eyes, a silent prayer passing over her lips. Then she stood. "We return to the oasis. We honor her. And we prepare." "For what?" Cade asked, pushing himself up. Vera looked west, where the horizon darkened. "The Krell don't hunt in packs this large without reason. They're chasing something, or someone." As if summoned, a low, resonant hum filled the air, not mechanical, but organic, ancient. From the heart of the glass wastes, a structure began to rise. Not a building, a ship, sleek, obsidian black, shaped like a teardrop, its surface shimmering with runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. Cade's blood ran cold. "That's not Krell." "No," Vera whispered, awe and dread twisting her voice. "That's the Enver, the sleeper ship. Legend says it carried the first Varelians to this world. It hasn't awakened in 10,000 cycles." "And now it has," Cade said. "Because of you," Taryn said bluntly. Cade turned. "Me? You carried Lyra from the infirmary," Vera explained, her eyes never leaving the rising ship. "She was holding the Heartstone, a relic from the sleeper ship. It responds to acts of pure compassion. It's been dormant for centuries, until you touched it through her." Cade couldn't believe it. "I just helped someone who was hurt. And that," Vera said, finally looking at him, "is why the ship chose you as its witness." Before he could respond, the Enver released a beam of soft white light, not destructive, but beckoning. It touched the ground near them, forming a bridge of luminous energy. "They want us to board," Taryn said, hand on her blade. Vera took Cade's hand again. "This is where the real test begins." "Why?" he asked. "Because the sleeper ship doesn't just awaken," she said. "It judges. And if it finds us unworthy, it will erase us from time itself." Cade let out a shaky laugh. "Of course it does." But he didn't pull away. Instead, he squeezed her hand. "Then let's go prove we're worth something." They walked toward the light together, the surviving warriors falling into step behind them. The wind rose, carrying whispers in a language older than stars. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving only the glow of the ship and the faint shimmer of Vera's hair in the dark. Inside the Enver, the air was cool and still, scented with something like rain on stone. The walls pulsed gently, as if breathing. Corridors spiraled upward into impossible geometries, shifting subtly as they moved. There were no controls, no doors, only paths that appeared when they were needed. At the heart of the ship, they found a chamber bathed in silver light. In its center floated a sphere of liquid crystal, the Heartstone, now glowing with inner fire. Around it stood 3 figures, hazy and translucent, their forms neither fully Varelian nor human, but something in between. The first mated, Vera breathed, dropping to one knee. Her warriors followed. Cade hesitated, then knelt beside her. "What do they want?" "The ship tests bonds," Vera whispered. "Not strength, not skill. Love, loyalty, the will to build, not destroy." The central figure turned toward them. Its voice was many voices, layered like echoes across time. "You claim union. Prove it." The chamber dissolved. Suddenly, Cade stood alone on a rain-slick street on Earth. Neon signs flickered. The smell of fried food and wet pavement filled his lungs. He recognized the place, New Seattle, before the war, before everything burned. And there she was, Mira. his ex-lover. The one who'd left when the draft came, saying she couldn't watch him die. She stood under an awning, smiling that sad, knowing smile. "You came back," she said. "I knew you would." Cade's chest ached. "You left. I was scared," she said, stepping closer. "But I never stopped loving you. Stay. Forget the war. Forget her. You belong here." He wanted to. Gods, he wanted to. But then he remembered Vera's hand in his. Her voice saying you're worth loving. Her standing between him and death without a second thought. "I belong with her," he said, stepping back. "She sees me. Not the soldier. Not the ghost. Me." Mira faded like mist. The world shifted again. Now he stood in a Varelian throne room, opulent and vast. Vera sat on a crystalline dais, regal in ceremonial robes, her hair braided with silver threads. But her eyes were cold, distant. "You've served your purpose," she said, voice devoid of warmth. "The bond was tactical. Now it ends." Cade's heart cracked. "You lied. I was scared," she said, stepping closer. "But I never stopped loving you. Stay. Forget the war. Forget her. You belong here." He wanted to. Gods, he wanted to. But then he remembered Vera's hand in his. Her voice saying you're worth loving. Her standing between him and death without a second thought. "I belong with her," he said, stepping back. "She sees me. Not the soldier. Not the ghost. Me." Mira faded like mist. The world shifted again. Now he stood in a Varelian throne room, opulent and vast. Vera sat on a crystalline dais, regal in ceremonial robes, her hair braided with silver threads. But her eyes were cold, distant. "You've served your purpose," she said, voice devoid of warmth. "The bond was tactical. Now it ends." Cade's heart cracked. "You lied." "I did what was necessary," she replied. "You were useful. Now you're not." He wanted to believe it. Part of him did, the part that expected betrayal that had been burned too many times. But then he remembered the way she'd looked at him after the battle. The quiet pride, the unspoken promise. "No," he said firmly. "That's not you. You don't use people. You protect them." The illusion shattered. Back in the chamber, the heartstone blazed brighter. The first mated bowed their heads. "The human holds true," the voices intoned. "The Varelian's heart is open. The bond is pure." Vera rose, tears glistening in her violet eyes. "It accepted us." But the ship wasn't done. The floor beneath them opened, revealing a map, not of stars, but of timelines. Branching paths, some ending in fire, others in peace. A single thread pulsed gold among the chaos. The Krell aren't just scavengers, Vera realized, her voice trembling. They're fleeing something worse. A rift in the galactic core. It's consuming entire systems. "And this ship can stop it," Kate said, understanding dawning. "Yes," the voices echoed, "but only if the mated bond pilots it. One soul, two hearts, human and Varelian. You must merge your wills, your memories, your very essence." Terran stepped forward. "That's irreversible. You'd become something new, neither human nor Varelian." Vera looked at Cade. "You don't have to." He thought of Earth, its oceans, its quiet mornings, the life he'd lost. Then he thought of Vera's hand in his, her laugh in the dark, the future they might build together. "I already chose," he said. "When you shielded me, I chose you back." She kissed him then, brief, fierce, full of unspoken promises. Together, they stepped into the Heartstone. Light consumed them. When it faded, they stood side by side, but changed. Cade's skin held a faint violet sheen. Vera's eyes glowed with a human warmth. Their thoughts intertwined, not merging, but harmonizing, like two songs becoming one. The Enver surged to life, its engines humming with cosmic power. Outside, the Krell fleet gathered, but now they weren't the threat. They were refugees, begging for salvation. And the ship answered. It opened its arms, not with weapons but with sanctuary. As the Enver lifted into the stars, carrying Varelian, human, and Krell alike, Cade and Vera stood at the bridge, hands clasped, hearts beating as one. Below them, the glass wastes faded into memory. Ahead lay a galaxy tearing itself apart. But they wouldn't let it, because love wasn't just a feeling. It was a weapon, a shield, a future, and they would forge it together. Years later, the glass wastes bloomed. Where once only ash and silence ruled, now wind-carved gardens spiraled around the hull of the Enver, its ancient stone fused with living crystal and human-engineered greenhouses. Children, human, Varelian, and those born of both, chased luminescent sandfoxes through terraced groves, their laughter echoing where war once screamed. Cade stood on the central balcony, his hair streaked with silver, one arm around Vera, whose white locks now shimmered with threads of deep blue, Earth's ocean woven into her braid. Their bond had not erased their differences but deepened them, like rivers carving a stronger canyon together. They'd piloted the Enver not to war, but to healing. The rift had been sealed not by force, but by harmony, the ship resonating with the unified will of beings who chose coexistence over conquest. The Krell, humbled and transformed, now tended hydroponic farms beneath moonlit domes. Terran, ever sharp-tongued, served as chancellor of the new alliance, rolling her eyes whenever Cade tried to cook authentic Earth stew in the communal kitchen. Inside their home, a fusion of Varelian elegance and human clutter. Their daughter, Lyrian, traced constellations on the glass floor, naming them after old Earth myths and Varelian ancestors alike. She had Cade's stubborn chin and Vera's luminous eyes, and when she laughed, it sounded like peace. No more dropships roared overhead. No more orders came from distant Earth or the fractured Varelian High Council. They had built something new, not an empire but a family, a sanctuary, promise kept. One evening, as the twin suns set in a sky streaked with auroras, Vera leaned her head on Cade's shoulder. "Remember when you thought you'd die alone in the sand?" He kissed her temple. "And you lied about me being your mate just to save my life." She smiled. "Turns out I wasn't lying at all." Below them, music rose, flutes, drums, and stringed instruments from a dozen worlds, inviting them to the nightly gathering. Hand in hand, they walked down the winding path, not as soldier and warrior, but as partners, parents, and pioneers of a gentler age. The war was over, the healing had begun, and love, stubborn and bright, had won. Years later, the glass wastes bloomed with life. Vines curled around sun-bleached war machines, and flowers unfurled in the shade of the Enver. Now a beacon of peace, not power. Cade and Vera stood on their terrace, watching their daughter Lyrian chase glowing sand moths through the garden, her laughter weaving human joy with Varelian song. Their bond had not erased who they were, but made them more. Cade gentler, Vera softer, both unshaken in their strength. The rift was sealed, not by weapons, but by unity. The Krell now farmers, the Varelians and humans neighbors, then kin. No more battles scarred the dunes. Instead, children of many species learned together under twin suns, speaking a new language born of shared stories and shared meals. Terran still teased Cade about his burnt bread, but always saved him a seat at the fire. One quiet evening, as stars dusted the violet sky, Vera leaned against him. "You were worth saving," she said softly. He kissed her hair, white as moonlight, now braided with earth-blue ribbons. "And you were worth staying for." Below, music rose, flutes, drums, and voices from 100 worlds, singing not of conquest, but of home. Hand in hand, they walked into the light. The war was over, peace had taken root, and love, quiet and fierce, had built a future worth living.